Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be doing a little tutorial for a challenge on frontendmentor.io. We're going to be doing the 3-column preview card component, and it's pretty simple. This is the desktop design, just like a little it's just like 3 sections, or what they call cards, usually in CSS. Each one of these will be a separate card, just side by side. So we'll just be using probably some flex box to put those side by side, and then each box has a little picture. It's like a card for, like, probably, I don't know, a rental car place, like a fictional rental car place. So you can choose from sedans, SUVs, and luxury vehicles. And yeah, it says rental right here. So it's like a rental car place. So that's what it looks like on desktop and laptop. And then mobile, if you're viewing this on a mobile phone, it'll just be stacked on top of each other like that. So should be a really simple challenge. Shouldn't take us too long. If you're new to HTML and CSS and web development, this might be a little challenging for you, but this is what videos like this are for. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how I would build this. And yeah, it should be really fun. Again, this is on frontendmentor.io. I'll link to the challenge in the description of the video. Video is not sponsored by them, guys. I'm just doing this to hopefully help some people out that are trying to do this challenge. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on this View Challenge Hub, and I'm going to hit Download Starter so I can get all the images and stuff that we need for this. I'm not going to... We'll just be referencing like the image. I'll have this... If you want to use Figma or Sketch, you can. I think you have to have a pro account, which costs money for Frontend Mentor, but if not, you can just have a free account and do this with me. There's like a photo that you can go off of. There'll be a design picture in the files that we downloaded. So I'm gonna go ahead and minimize that, and I'm gonna open up Visual Studio Code, my text editor. So yeah, I'm gonna be using Visual Studio Code, guys. I'll go over a couple of the shortcuts that I'm doing if you're completely new. That way this can be like a standalone video, and you guys can learn some new stuff about text editors too. But yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to go to my downloads where I just downloaded that file. It comes as a zip file, the 3-column preview card component main zip. Unzip it. And then, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and drag this folder. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this folder into here, into my Visual Studio Code to open it. And then we'll see the folders that we have here. We have like the design, like I told you about. So it'll have pictures of what stuff is supposed to look like. So this is the mobile view, desktop, and then active states. So that just means like when we hover over buttons and stuff, that's usually called active state. So as you can see, when you hover over the buttons, the button basically goes transparent and you can just see the background. But looking at it, we'll probably just we'll use like a hover effect with CSS and just change the color of the background of the button to the same color as this to give it that. But that's just me thinking now. That might not work for some reason. We'll have to do something else, but we'll see. So there's all the design. I'm not going to really need this, and I don't want this in my files, so I'm going to delete it, but you can keep it in yours if you want. The images here, so these are the icons for the cars, and they're in SVG format. So that's just like a little format that you can make images with. So I'll show you how to add those. It's really simple. This is a favicon for Frontend Mentor that I don't want, so I'm going to delete that. A favicon is like the little icons on web pages that are up in the up in the corner. Like when you open a Google page, a website will have like their logo or something. I don't want this get ignore in here, so I'm going to get rid of this. We've got the index HTML, but I like to start with a fresh file, so I'm going to delete that before I do that. So I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to make my own boilerplate HTML. So I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to type the exclamation point where the number 1 is at the top, and then I'm going to hit Tab, and that's the shortcut to get your boilerplate in Visual Studio Code for HTML. And we'll just call this, this is like a fictional rental place, so we'll name the webpage something like more realistic instead of just naming it like 3-column preview card. Let's say like choose your vehicle, because it looks like you'd be on like a part of the website where that's where you'd be doing, right? Choosing the vehicle you wanted. So if I can spell vehicle. There we go. Choose your vehicle. And we'll save. And now we got this README template. This just tells you about the project and stuff like that. We don't really need that. Oops, I don't want to rename it. I just want to get rid of this stuff because we don't need this in our project. Any files you're not going to use, guys, especially when we upload this, if you're going to upload this to like a live website on the internet, you don't want all these extra files that have to load in your website when you're never going to use them. So get rid of this readme.md as well. And then we got the style guide here. This tells us our colors, so that's cool. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my web page using the live server extension for Visual Studio Code. See how I have this little go live button down here? Okay. And you can get that by clicking on this extensions button and just typing in live. And then going to, it'll say install here, just so you can install it. I think it'll have you restart Visual Studio Code, but then you'll have that button. And then I'm just going to, just to get this out of the way now, guys, I'm going to be using shortcuts in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to be using like code completion. So if I want to make like an H1, I'm just going to type H1 and then hit tab, and that'll complete my H1 tag. So I'll be typing my code out like that, guys. I don't like to do everything by manual because that takes forever. And then when I make stuff like, if I put like a class on a div, I'm going to use the shortcut for classes. So I'll say dot my class tab, and that'll give me a div with my class. That's another shortcut you're going to see me using. Same thing with IDs. If I want to make an ID on something, you're going to see me say hashtag my ID tab, and that gives me an ID with whatever I typed in there. So I'm going to be doing those little shortcuts, just a heads up. Those are Visual Studio Code shortcuts. I'm not going to make a full video on Visual Studio Code here, so learn more about that if you have to with other resources, but that's what I'm going to be doing. Every time I save, like when you type up here, you want to save your changes, you can do two things. You can go File and Save, and that'll save your document and update it. Or you can hold CTRL or Command if you're on Mac and the letter S, like that, and then that'll save your document as well. It's like the save shortcut, okay? So that's pretty much all you have to know. So let's go live with our document here. And I'm going to end up putting it just side by side here so we can watch our web page get built as we save and update our changes, okay? So as you can see up here, we have choose your vehicle with 3 O's, and we just need 2. There we go. So we know it's updating because I did the save shortcut and it changed the title, so we know our web page is good to go. Let's make an CSS page. So let's go, oops. We'll click on index, and I'm going to hit this new file button right here, and I'm going to make a file called style.css. Okay. And then let's connect our CSS to our HTML. So I'm going to go underneath this last meta tag, type out the word link, and hit tab. It's already got our rel filled with style sheet because it knows we're going to make a style sheet, so that's already filled out. I'm just going to type in style, select style.css, and save. Okay, so our CSS should be connected to our HTML now, so we can verify that. We'll put H1 here, and I'll say test, and I'll save, and now that's updating correctly. That's good. And let's make our H1 red. So let's say color red. All right, our CSS is connected. So while we're here, let's go ahead and reset our page with the CSS reset. That'll get rid of all the default margin and padding on the page. So I'm going to say asterisk, and I'm going to make my little curly braces. I'm going to say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing border box. Okay, there we go. So you can see when I saved, this got sucked up into the corner because now all the default margin and padding is gone. If you don't know what a CSS reset is, guys, I have a whole video on this topic on the channel. Just go ahead and find that. Practical Web Dev CSS Resets Explained or something like that, and it explains exactly what all that does. All right, so we can get rid of this. Usually the next thing I like to do is I like to get the font, whatever font's going to be used for the web page. So let's go ahead and do that. Usually with Front End Mentor, it's a Google font. So if we go click into our files here and we go to style guide, it'll tell us what the font is. So it looks like it's going to be, see, it's on the bottom here. And it's Lexen Deca for the first one and Big Shoulders Display for the second one. These are both Google fonts. So we'll go to Google Fonts together and we'll grab those fonts right now. So let's go open up a Google tab and I'll type in Google fonts. Click on that. And I'm going to click on the shopping bag in the top right corner. And I'm going to remove all the fonts that I have in here. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and grab them together. So the first one is Lexen Deca. So let's say Lexen Deca. There it is, Lexen Deca. So let's click on this. And what we got to see what font weight we need that in. So font weight here is 400. So we need the 400 for that. So if you scroll down, it'll say the font weights in the top left corner for each font. So it starts at 100 and goes all the way up to usually 900. And we just want regular 400 right here. So let's select that. And now we need to grab Big Shoulders Display font. So let's go open our search bar, type in Big Shoulders Display. And that's Big Shoulders Display. And we need 700 font weight for that, and that's the only one, so that's good. So let's scroll down to where it says 700. And there it is, bold 700. Okay. Now all this link over here, we're going to copy this. I'm going to click the copy button. We're going to paste this into our HTML. And I'm going to paste it above our style sheet link and below the last meta tag. Okay. So now that connects our page through the internet to the Google Fonts API, and that'll let us get the fonts on our page and load them whenever we load the web page. And now we also need to add those fonts to, we're going to hit the copy here where the fonts are. We need to add this to our CSS. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to make a CSS comment by hitting Command, or you can also do that by hitting CTRL on PC, Command on Mac. And I'm going to hit the question mark, type a question mark out, and that'll give me a CSS comment. And in my comment, I'm just going to copy those font families down and use them where I need to when I need to. This is just a small project, so no need to get fancy here. I'm just going to do it this way. Just have these saved and then you paste them in when I need them. So we have our fonts and we loaded up the font weights and everything in our HTML, so we should be good to go there. I'm going to get out of here. And now we should be able to start building the page. So let's get rid of this test and hit save so that disappears. And let's get started. So let's go to our, well, see, I got rid of the design here. So I'm going to pull up the design again in the challenges. Here we go. And I'll just go off of this here. You can use that file if you want to keep the design file with the pictures. Or you can download Figma or Sketch. I'm not going to go over Figma or Sketch in this tutorial, guys. If you want to learn that stuff, go look that stuff up if you want to tackle it through Figma or Sketch. But what I'll do is, I'll just do this. Go to challenges. And we'll pull it up through here. There we go. So I'll just be referencing this picture. So, yeah. Let's get started here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this web page in what's called a container, so that there's always going to be margin and padding on the sides like there is here. So I'm going to make a class that goes and wraps around all of our content called container. So I'm going to say dot container tab. Within the container, or first we'll do the CSS for the container. Get that out of the way because it's like a foundational part of our web page. So I'm gonna go to my CSS, put dot container, and I'm gonna make the width of this page, or of the content on the page, 90%. So that'll make it so that there's always padding on the sides. You don't ever want to make a web page where it's like taking up the whole page side to side, because that's just not a thing, right? If you look at any modern normal web page. The max width of our content on the page within this container is going to be 1100 pixels. And then we're going to say margin left auto and margin right auto. And that's just going to ensure that everything within our container is also centered in the page, because as you can see, the design is centered in the page here, right? It's right dead center, so it looks good. So that's what our container class is going to do. We already have it here. And then within our container, we're going to make we'll use the section tag in HTML. And I'm going to have an ID, and I'm going to call this the vehicle descriptions ID. So I'll say vehicle, because this is what this page is, right? Or this is basically what it's doing. So this area of the page is vehicle descriptions. Okay. So we got our vehicle descriptions section. And then what we're going to do, how I'm going to break this down in my head is we have the container, which is like all this white space that's going to be centered. Okay, just pretend container. And then we have the section, which is like another kind of like container that's going to contain our 3 cards. And we just made that. We give it the idea of vehicle descriptions. And then within that section, we're going to have our 3 cards. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to make a class for each card called description card. And it's going to have the same styling, because all of these, while they have different content and colors, style-wise, they're all set up the same. They just have a different image and different text. So that makes our job really easy. So we'll make 3 cards. We'll give them all the same class. We'll call it description card. And then as far as like styling each different one with a different background color and stuff, we'll put an ID on each one of those. And we'll name the ID like sedans, the other one SUVs, and the third one luxury cars or luxury. And that'll enable us to control the colors for each card without changing the general styling. So if that all doesn't make sense to you, it's going to make sense when we go through it. But this is how I'm breaking this down in my head, just to kind of give you guys my train of thought here. So let's get that done. So we got vehicle descriptions. And so I'm going to make a div with the class of description card. So let's say dot description card. And then I'll do a hashtag right onto that, because we're also going to have an ID for each one. And this one's going to be sedan. There we go. So again, we have a div now. Description card class, ID sedan. We're going to have 2 more divs just like that, and they're just going to have different IDs, but they're going to have the same class because they share all that same styling. But again, you'll see what I mean as we build if that's confusing you. So the next part is each one of these has like the vehicle. So it goes vehicle image, heading, paragraph, button. Okay, so we're going to have that for each one of our cards. So let's start with the image. Let's make a div, and within the div we'll have the vehicle icons for each one, and so we'll call this div the vehicle icon container, because that's what it is. So we want our divs to be really descriptive with their class names, so we know exactly what they're doing, even if they're a little long. So we have vehicle icon container. And then in there we'll go image. And then this is going to be like our first card is the sedan icon. So let's say dot in source, I'm going to say /, and that in computer code means the dot means go to a different directory, and then the / means go into, and then we're going to say the images folder. So I'm going to hit enter, and then sedans.svg is right here, and that's the one we want. So I'm going to select that. And then in my alt text, I'll just put sedan icon, because that's what it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and save. And there's the sedan icon. Okay, really cool, right? All right, and then below the sedan icon is a heading. And I'm going to make that heading in H3. And it says, the text just says sedans. Okay, so again, we're right here, guys, sedans. And then below that is a paragraph with some text in it. So we'll have a P for paragraph. And then I'm going to copy this text. I have another screen. So it says, choose a sedan for its affordability and excellent fuel economy, ideal for cruising in the city or on your next day trip. And I just copied that text from I have like a 3-screen setup here. So on my other screen, I have the text where I can copy it. I'm going to paste that in there because I don't want to type it all out. And I'm going to save. Oops. Click in here and I'm going to save. And there's our text showing up. Okay. And then below that is a button. So let's make a button. So we'll use the semantic HTML tag that's literally called button for the button. And we'll give this a class because all the buttons, again, have the same styling on each one. So we'll call this the Learn More button. So we'll say Learn More BTN. And then the text in all the buttons simply says Learn More. Okay? So there we go. You can see now we don't have like CSS making this all pretty, but you can see like now we have the basic foundation of what each one of our cards is going to look like. It's going to have the image, heading, the paragraph, and the button. Okay? So the beauty of that, guys, is now that we have that foundation set up, we can just copy this thing down 2 more times and we're set. Now we just got to really change our content and the colors and the positioning, and that's it. So I'm going to select my whole vehicle description card, and I'm going to hold Shift, Option, and go down twice on my arrow key on my Mac keyboard. I'm not really sure what the PC shortcut for that is. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've been on a PC keyboard, but you can just do copy, paste if you want with the mouse, or Control V, or Control C, Control V if you want. Just copy it down twice, that card that we just made, and hit save. And now we've got 3 cards, and now they all have the sedan information in them, but we'll change that to what it needs to be, okay? So let's just do that now. Next up, so we did sedans. Next, we're going to do SUVs. So we'll do SUVs and put all the content in that one. And then lastly, we'll do luxury. And then we'll start getting into the CSS to make everything look good, okay? So I'm going to scroll up and see our first card is here, and it's the sedan card. Starts here, ends here. So this one will be the SUV. So I'll say SUVs for this ID name. And then we're going to change the image to the SVG image. So let's say /images SUVs.svg. We'll change this alt text to SUV icon. And then I'm going to copy and paste the paragraph text for the SUV from my other screen into my paragraph. So let's copy paste. I'm going to put SUV here for my H3 text in this one. And let's see how that looks. I just saved it all. So there we go. Now we've got our SUV icon. SUVs is our title. And then take an SUV for its spacious interior, power, and versatility. We've got all that text in there. And then the Learn More button. So the last thing we have to do now is luxury. Okay, so let's just do all the luxury content in our third little card. So it starts here. The ID for this one's going to be luxury. And we'll go into the images. We'll say /images icon luxury.svg. And then this again is going to be luxury icon. And then our H3 here, we'll just type out luxury. And we're going to use CSS to make this capitalized like the design, guys, so don't worry about that. I'm going to get my luxury text. And I'm going to copy paste in here. If you're unable to copy paste the text, guys, just pause the video and type it out, okay? It's no problem. So there we go. We saved everything, and now we have the luxury card. So we have all of our cards. It's ugly. It's just stacked on top of each other. There's no real styling going on. But we're going to fix that now, okay? So the only styles we wrote so far were our CSS reset and our container. You can see our container's working because there's padding on the sides of the design right here. That's from the container, okay? So we know our container class is doing its job. Let's go to style.css now. And we're going to display the cards side by side like they're supposed to be. How I think I'm going to do it is I'm going to select let's select this vehicle descriptions ID. I always copy paste my ID and class names over to my CSS, and that prevents typos. I suggest you guys do the same because, as you know, if you have one typo when you're coding stuff, it just breaks everything and it won't work like it's supposed to, and you can get really frustrated and hung up on why it's not working for hours when it's just a simple typo. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to hit dot, paste my vehicle descriptions, class name or ID. Is that an ID? I think it's an ID actually. Yeah, it's an ID. So it shouldn't be a dot. It should be a hashtag. Hashtag vehicle descriptions. Do my curly braces. And let's put these side to side. And I'm actually gonna let's use CSS grid. Why not? Grid is fun. So let's say display grid. And it's not going to do anything yet, but now we're making that a grid container. Now I'm going to say grid template columns. I'm going to say repeat, and I'm going to say 3, 1 FR. And what that code says, it says I want 3 columns, and I want them all 1 FR taking up 1 fraction of the area they're supposed to take up. So I want, in other words, 3 equal columns side by side, please. That's what that means. So I'm going to do that, hit save. And now you can say that made our cards go side by side, just like they're supposed to be. Still not looking that good, though, but they're side by side. We're going to say justify items to the center. And that just ensures that it'll stay in the center of the page. Okay. Can't really see much of a change there, but it does. It's important to have that. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add margin to the top and bottom because we don't want these sucked all the way up to the top of the page. That's not how the design looks, and it looks weird. So let's say margin top, I'll say like 5 rem. 1 rem equals 16 pixels, so 5 times 16, whatever that is. That's how many pixels on the top we're doing. You can use rems or pixels, guys. Doesn't matter. Just know that 1 rem is 16 pixels, okay? And then I'll even put some margin bottom here. We'll say margin bottom 2 rem. That way we'll always have spacing on the bottom, and that'll come in handy like when we go mobile. It'll have spacing on the bottom of the phone. When you scroll all the way down, it'll have like a little bit of white space, and you'll see what I mean if you don't know yet. So now that we got each one of our cards, got all the content in our cards, they're side by side now. So now what we have to do is we have to go through and do all the little finer details. So we have to give each one its background color. We have to give the text its proper colors with its proper styling and the proper fonts. Remember, we got those Google fonts, so we'll add those. And then we got to style up the buttons for each one, okay? So let's get that done. So we'll start with sedans. It's like the background's like an orange color. So I'm going to go ahead and select the sedan ID for the sedan card. And we're going to say background. And we have the background colors and the style guide. So bright, I think it's the bright orange. It's just HSL color. So let's just copy paste that in, and let's see if it gives us that orange. Oops, it looks like it's going to in VS Code. So we'll do that. There we go. And then each one, if you look at the design, there's a little bit of what's called border radius on this card, on the 2 cards on each end. And that's just like a little curve. So we'll give the border radius to the sedans. We're going to have to do it for the sedans card and the luxury card so that it looks like the design. So let's say border radius. And let's say 8 pixels. So for border radius, the shorthand like I'm about to do goes top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, all in that order. So it's kind of like clockwise. So 8 pixels, because 8 pixels is top left, which is where we want it here. Then we want 0 pixels, 0 pixels. So 0 pixels there. Or no, sorry, 0 pixels. Yeah, 0 pixels there. And then 8 pixels. So that should be right. Let's see. Yeah, so we said, yes, give us a curve top left, none bottom or top right, bottom left 0, and then 8 pixels. So it gave us the curve where we wanted it. Okay, so now we have straight corners here, and then we have our little curved edges here. So that's just like the design, so that's good. We'll just have to remember to do that on the luxury one to round it out when we get there. So let's just go ahead and get our 2 other IDs out of the way with the correct backgrounds and stuff. And then we'll do the styling for each description card so that those will all look really good. Okay. So after sedan, we have SUVs. So let's go here. And then select SUVs ID. Okay. And the background for that is like I don't even know, like a teal? Like a turquoise or teal color for SUVs. So let's just copy this background here and then we'll change it. Go to our style guide and, okay, maybe it's dark cyan. So we'll just copy this little HSL color and paste it there. Hit save, and yes, that matches the design. Okay, so it's that color. And then now let's just do the luxury color, which is very dark cyan. So let's just say hashtag luxury. And we'll copy this background code snippet here. Go to our style guide, and we'll copy paste very dark cyan. And we'll just paste this in here. Okay, so that should be all of our colors, and there it is. It's the very dark cyan. So there we go. We're starting to see this take shape. Let's not forget that we also need to do the border radius on these corners so that it looks good. So for this one, the border radius code is going to look like this. We're going to say 0 pixels, 8 pixels, 8 pixels, and 0 pixels. Save. And now we've got curves on each side, guys. Okay, looks just like the design now. It'll look more, you'll see the curves more visibly as we build it out more. You can't really tell too well now, but they're there. Okay, so now that we got our little ID cards, so now that we got each little color for each card and everything out of the way, we can move on to like general styling for each of the cards. So we can give them like the white text, the proper fonts, and all that good stuff right now. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll pretty much almost be done. So this will be a quick challenge. Let's say I'm going to select all of the description cards because I think that's what we called all of them for class. We gave them all the class of description cards. So we'll only have to write the styles once and it'll go on to all of the cards. So let's say description card. And if you look at the design, there's space around all of the content from left, right, top, and bottom. It's not all scrunched up like we have it. So let's give it some padding. Let's just say padding all around of 2.5 rem. So that's almost like 40 pixels of padding all around everything. So I'm going to say 2.5 rem and then we'll save. Okay, there we go. That's starting to look a lot better just with that. Now we'll style up the vehicle icon containers for each one because as you can see in the design, there's some like margin on the bottom or padding on the bottom of each one. So we'll do that. We'll make that happen so that everything isn't so close to it. So we'll say description card. So I'll just copy this dot description card. And then we'll select the class of vehicle icon container, which every card also has. So we'll say dot vehicle icon container. And we'll say padding bottom 1.5 rem. Okay, and that gives it some space. So now we have some space between our icon and everything else, so that's good. Looks pretty close to the design. Okay. Now we'll style up the H3, the headings for each one. So we'll copy this description card again. And you notice, guys, I copy and paste stuff a lot because, again, it minimizes typos and it saves time. So say the dot description card. Now we'll select each H3. And this is where we're going to use the Big Shoulders display font. So let's go up here and select that font family that we pasted in the comment earlier. And just paste that all in here. And as you can see, now all of them have that font after we saved. And then the color for each heading is hashtag F2F2F2 hex code. Okay. And then the font size for each title is 40 pixels. And I know this, guys, because off recording, I did actually download the Figma file for this, the actual design file. And that's how I got all this other stuff. I'm not sure, does it say it here? It doesn't really say the font sizes for the headings. So yeah, I got all this like other stuff basically from Figma. So design software like Figma, or you can download Sketch, it actually tells you what everything is without you just having to eyeball stuff. So but yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about those small details if you're just a beginner. Just worry about building something that looks semi close to a design, right? Just get the work done. Don't be a perfectionist quite yet. But anyway, the font weight for this is going to be 700. And we're this text in the design for each heading, it's all like uppercase letters. So we're going to make that happen with CSS because we didn't do that with HTML. And the property for that is called text transform. And then we're going to say text transform uppercase, and we're save. And now everything's in caps, all caps, like we want it. And now we need some space between our heading and the paragraph text. So we're going to say padding bottom 1.5 rems. And then we get our space there after we save, okay? So our card is really taking shape now. It's looking really good. Next, we'll just keep going on down the line. So next we have the paragraph. So let's say dot description card P, paragraph. And the color of the paragraph text is just white. So we'll use the hex code of hashtag FFF. That's the color for white. The font family for the paragraph text is going to be the Lexen Deca. So we'll copy and paste that in. And we'll save. And it did change it to that Lexen Deca, so that's good. The font size for paragraphs on this design is 15 pixels. So a little smaller than default. Font weight is going to be 400, so we'll put that in there to make sure it's always 400. And then there's line height on this. So line height is like the spacing between words and lines in a paragraph. And for the line height for this, according to the design file, it is 25 pixels, so we'll put that in. And now you can see we have some nice spacing, so it makes the text a little more readable, which is good. And then the text is slightly, it's kind of hard to tell in the design, but it's white, but it's transparent. So you can kind of see through it a little bit. That's why it's a little lighter. It doesn't look like it's white. So we can do that by using a property in CSS called opacity. So we'll say opacity. And that's just another way of saying like see-through. And we'll say we want our opacity to be 0.75. So I'll put opacity 0.75 and we'll save. Oops. And then now it looks like the design, because our text is like a little faded and you can kind of see through it, and that's what the design looks like. Okay. So that's how we achieve that. And then lastly, we pretty much just have to make the buttons look good. So the buttons look like this. Okay. So we got to make all the buttons look like that. So we'll select the buttons. We'll say, let's see, we have a class for each one called Learn More BTN. So we'll just copy that, put a dot, select it with this class selector in our CSS, and put our curly braces. And each button is going to have a width of 146 pixels and a height of 42 pixels, and we'll save. There we go. And then we're going to put a border radius on each button of 25 pixels. Make it pretty rounded. We're going to give each button a custom border. So you can see here we have like a default black border around it, but we don't want that. So we're going to say border. We'll say 2 pixels, solid, and we'll give it the F2 color, the same color as the H3 headings. So hashtag F2, 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 save. There we go. And then each button also has a background color of the F2. So we'll say background, hashtag F2, 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 save. And then we always want our buttons to have that cursor to be pointer when we're over them. So that little that pointer right there. And the font family for these is going to be the Lexan Deca. So let's go ahead and select that and paste it in. There we go. And the font size is 15 pixels for the button as well, same as the paragraph. So we'll say font size 15 pixels. And then we need some space between the button and the paragraph. So let's say margin top. I think it's a pretty good amount of distance down. So let's say like margin top 5 rem for each one. Say margin top 5 rem. And we'll save, and now all of our buttons have that same spacing, so that's good. Let's see how it looks on full screen. All right, so that looks so far so good. Whoops, our height isn't right because we didn't put px after it, so let's hit 42 pixels. Now it looks more like it should. There we go. That looks good. They're all in line with each other, so cool. Let's see. So each button, remember, it showed us in the design that whenever we hovered over the buttons, they go like transparent, and what ends up happening is there's just the border, and then the background turns the same as the background for the card or something like that, right? So let's make that happen with some CSS hover classes or pseudo selectors. So to do that, we're going to say on all of our buttons, we want a transition, and we're going to say transition all 0.1 second, so a slight delay, and ease into an animation of changing the background color. And then we'll select this learn more button right below it and do a colon, say hover. That's the pseudo selector for hover. That's how you get stuff to happen when you hover over stuff. And let's just say background none. Take around the background color for each button on hover. And then we'll say color FFF, so make the text white. Whoops. Try that again. Color, hashtag FFF. Let's hover over and see if that happens. And it does. So that's good. Yeah. Looks good. Okay. Okay, yeah. So when we hover over it, it's just supposed to turn the color. So when it's not in the active state, the text color for each button is supposed to be the same as the background color for each card. So like instead of black for each one, that's supposed to be a little different. So what we can do is we'll put an ID on each one of the buttons that'll just control the color of the text for each one. Because we can't just do that with the class, because then it'll change it for each one, and each one's different. So let's just use IDs again. So let's start on our first card with the first button for sedans. And we'll say ID, we'll just say orange, because that'll be the orange color. We'll just keep it simple. And then for the next one, we'll say ID cyan, I think is the color. And then for the last button, we'll have an ID of dark cyan. So let's say ID dark cyan. Okay. Now let's just go use each one of our little IDs to make the button color change every time. So let's say hashtag orange, and we'll say color, and it's the orange color. So what is it? Do we use the HSL up here? If we use the HSL, let's say HSL. There we go. HSL, this orange color. So there we go. Now it's orange. Okay. Now that's making that disappear, so that's not good. We'll fix that in a second. So orange. And then we'll say hashtag cyan color. Whoops. Color. HSL. This lighter one. There we go. And we'll just copy this down. We'll say dark cyan. And we'll say HSL, this darker one. Cool. Now when we hover, that kind of ruins our hover effect, guys, because it's not listening. The idea is overriding what I said to do on the hover pseudo selector by keeping the text white. But how we can get around that is we can just go to the color here and say next to the color on the hover, which is white, say exclamation important. And that'll say, that means that's telling CSS, hey, no matter what, even if there's an ID on here, change it to white when I hover or else, right? You have to listen. That's basically what I mean. So let's see if that works. And it does. Cool. Now it's exactly how it's supposed to work. So that's good. We did that part. What else? I think that's it, guys. So let's see how it looks full screen. Beautiful. Let's see. Yeah. Next road trip. Very good. It looks like our text might be a little too wide, so we can fix the width of the paragraphs because the paragraphs on the design are like a little more sucked in on each side. So we can fix that with width. So let's do this. Let's use our Google Developer Tools. And so your next road trip should be on the last line of sedans. That's how wide the text should be. So I'm going to right click and hit inspect. And I'm going to hit my selector tool here and select my paragraph. And then I'm going to say below the opacity, I'm just going to type in width. And I'm going to say 70%. And see where that gets me. And dude, I nailed it on the first one, I think. Let's mess with, it's this right here. It's 73%. So I'm just going up and down on my arrow keys, guys. And this is how you can like manipulate and style a web page without like writing it in your text editor with the Google Developer Tools. So when I added the width property and put 73%, it made the text exactly as wide as it should be. So I'm going to copy that width. Because when you go back, if I refresh the page, it's going to delete that styling. See, it's gone now. So we got to put that in our actual code for it to stick. So let's go to VS Code. And just paste that into our paragraph CSS right here. Bam. Cool. That's how it's supposed to look. A little more sucked in. So now it looks just like the design. Yeah, now it's like identical. So that's cool. Cool. And then we'll manipulate that for smaller screen sizes because it might not look that good. We'll make it a little wider, the paragraph text, but that's good. Okay. Yeah. So let's make this mobile responsive, and the only thing we have to do now is just stack the cards on top of each other for smartphones, really, and smaller screens. So I'm going to go all the way down here, and I'm going to do a CSS comment, say media queries. In other words, this is where my mobile styles start. All right, and then I'm going to say, let's say at media screen and then we'll say max width. We'll say 650 pixels. So in other words, I'm telling the web page all screens 650 pixels and below do these following styles, which is going to be stack each card on top of each other and look good for mobile. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, so let's go into like a mobile view. So again, I'm going to right click over here and hit inspect. And I'm going to click the mobile icon down here. And I'm going to view this on, so this is already set to an iPhone 14 Pro Max. I don't want that though. Let's do like an iPhone 12 Pro. That's like the most common screen size, at least in the USA. Probably everybody has an iPhone. So let's do that. Let's, this is what it looks like on an iPhone, guys. This is all the different mobile devices you can select from. So I'm going to select i12 Pro. I'm going to say width 100%, just so zoom that in a little bit so I can actually see what's going on. And what we need to do now is we'll go in and we'll change our grid CSS for mobile so that instead of side by side, everything stacks on top of each other. And that's really easy to do. So I'm just going to go up here to vehicle descriptions. I think it's still spelled wrong, but I'm not fixing it. Just something doesn't look right, but whatever. So we're going to say we want it to be grid and everything. So I don't want so much margin on the top anymore. So, and I still want my margin bottom. So let's get rid of margin bottom because we're not changing that. Margin top, let's say 2 rem instead of 5. That brought that up a little bit. Justify items, I'm not changing that, so let's just get rid of that code because we don't need it twice. If you're not changing stuff in your media queries, guys, just delete it because it'll just go default from whatever's up here, okay? You don't need it twice. And instead of saying 3 across, we're going to say repeat 1 FR, and that should stack everything. There we go. Okay? There we go. Yep. Is there space in between them? No, they're all connected. So the next thing we're going to have to do is get rid of our border radius on, or we're going to have to change our border radius so that it's on the 2 top and 2 bottom ones instead of it's a little jumbled up right now because now we have border radius here and that doesn't look good. So we'll fix that. So I think it's on sedan and luxury. So let's just copy all of these just because I'm lazy. And I'll paste them down here. Get rid of SUVs. So for sedan, we're keeping the background color. Let's get rid of that. And we're going to change this to 8 pixels, 8 pixels, 0, 0. So the correct ones are showing. So top left, top right, we want you to have the border radius. So there we go. Now it has it. And then for luxury, get rid of the background. We're not changing that, but we're going to have the 2 bottom ones say 8 pixels now. So delete that, put 8 pixels here, and it should work. Can't see the whole screen here. Let's see, got to get this down. There we go. We got our border radius there. Let's go 75. There you go. Now you can really see it. Okay. So now our border radius looks like it's supposed to. And now we still have that padding on the sides, even in the mobile view, guys, because remember in the very beginning, we made the container. We made that container class that wraps around our whole content. And we said, hey, man, no matter what screen size, it can only be 90% of the width of the screen, so it can't go all the way across. So that's really helping us out there, okay? That's why we did that. Let's see, is that pretty much? I think it's pretty much all we have to do, guys. So let's see how it looks on other phones. See how it looks on landscape mode. So I'm going to hit rotate here, and it looks good. So the one thing I don't like is these buttons need to all be in the same area no matter what. And it's not doing that because each paragraph has a different amount of text. It's affecting the button positioning, if that makes sense. So to fix that, we can use what's called position relative and position absolute to position each button in the same spot no matter what the screen size. So let's do that. Because that's driving me. I don't like that. It doesn't look good. So I'm going to go back to desktop view and see even when we like make it smaller. Now these are not where they should be. So, all right, guys, this is me coming at you from the future, from the magic of editing. So, remember I didn't like that these learn mores on certain screen sizes were like a bigger size like this. They were in different heights and widths, or not heights and width, but different positions based on how much text is here. So I made a couple of changes, and then while I was doing that, my audio didn't record well for some reason, so I had to go back. But I have the code. I'll just show you what I did to fix that. I went in and I went down to our media queries, and I created a new media query for a max width of 1024 pixels. So that's like most tablet sizes and under. Okay, so maximum width of that. And I just changed the width of the paragraph to 90%. And up here we have it at, for like big desktops, we have it at like 73%, I believe. Yeah. So I bumped it up so it took up more of the page, and this text didn't stack quite as much for those bigger screen sizes. And then I changed the max width that we used to have for I think it was for 650 pixels. I made it up to 766 pixels to accommodate more smartphones that would, if you place them in landscape or long mode, and smaller tablets. And I made the little change of just making the width on paragraph 70%. So that it just fixed the stacking a little bit, and it made the learn more. It made the text look better, and then it just helped the learn mores not be in all different weird looking positions on different screen sizes. So if we go through here and just we'll go through the device list and I'll show you how it looks now. So my device list, if you're doing this for the first time or if you don't do Google Developer Tools that much, this is how you test for mobile, how things look on different mobile devices. You click on this mobile icon down here, and then you have like a list of devices. Mine is going to look different than yours because I made a custom device list that mimics like all the screen sizes that are out there today on the market for the most part. The default tools, it'll show you like a couple iPhones and iPads and a couple Android phones, and that's it. But if you go down to edit, you can add all these devices here. Like I added like Galaxy S3, Nexus, all these phones. There's so many phones and screen sizes today, but based on my research and my experience, like the ones that I have selected are like the most common. So, or they overlap. Like an iPhone XR might overlap a Nokia N9 in screen size because they're really similar. Just stuff like that. So, yeah. But anyway, so let's go through them here, do our final check for our mobile responsive, and then we'll be done with the project. So, BlackBerry Playbook, this is like a hybrid phone tablet thing. Looks good. Galaxy S8, it's like a smaller Android phone. This is probably an old phone, but remember, it's not necessarily the phone model that matters. What also matters is just the screen size and resolution, and the S8 and S9 Plus and all that. They're all representative of screen sizes, maybe even for newer models that are out today. It's the same screen size. It's just like an updated processor or whatever. So don't let that throw you off too much if you're like, why does this guy have all these old phones on here? So anyway, we're just testing each device in portrait and landscape. Most people, you and I, especially anybody that when you're viewing stuff on your phone, it's pretty much always going to be in this view, in the portrait view. It's rare that I ever turn my phone over in landscape, but I still, when I build stuff and I develop and I make custom HTML and CSS projects, I like to make sure it looks good both ways on all phones or as many screens as I can get, reasonably. So it's see how this one's a little further down on here on the Pixel 3 in landscape mode, but that's okay. It's not going to be pixel perfect on every single device. It's just not. But yeah, Yeah, and again, you'll notice that like for this phone, when I turn it landscape, it's still stacked because I made the max with 766. So all phones 766 pixels and below are just going to be stacked, okay? So this is 745 in landscape, so it's still just stacked. And it looks fine. It looks good. Again, most people don't turn their smartphones that way when you're on your smartphone. The only time that you usually do landscape is like when you're watching a video or a YouTube video or something. So to get the full screen, right? But yeah, guys, as you can see, going through all the different smartphones and tablets and mobile devices, this thing looks pretty clean. I think we're good here. So yeah. Let's just try it on like a Galaxy Fold. This Galaxy Fold is only 280 pixels. It's one of those phones that folds up really thin, but still even looks good on there. So you can even try like the iPhone 5. Why not? Looks good. Okay. So yeah, I'm happy with how it looks. It's iPad Pro. Looking good. How about iPad Mini? Looking good. Yeah. So yeah, Microsoft Surface. All right, guys. So I think this is going to wrap up the project. I'm really happy with how it looks mobile and desktop. We get one more view in the desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and upload my solution to Front-End Mentor IO. And I'm going to upload this to my GitHub. I will post the GitHub and the links to the Front-End Mentor Challenge and all that down in the description. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.